When Prince William whispered the words that would shake the foundations of the British monarchy, even his closest advisors were left breathless. In a private moment captured and leaked to the inner circle, the future king admitted the unimaginable. He is struggling to hold the monarchy together. But what forced the heir to reveal such vulnerability? And why now? Before we go deeper into what this really means for the royal family, make sure to subscribe so you don't miss a single update. The audio leak that triggered chaos inside Buckingham Palace was never meant to exist. It was a moment of exhaustion, a confession uttered between silence and duty, where William's voice cracked under the weight of centuries. "I don't know how much longer I can do this," he said, unaware that someone close was listening. Within hours, senior aides were scrambling, phones buzzing across the palace corridors, desperate to contain the damage before the press got wind of it. But secrets like these rarely stay buried in Windsor soil. The sound of vulnerability so foreign in royal circles was now echoing through the halls of power. For decades, the image of William had been one of quiet resilience, the calm heir, the unshakable prince, the symbol of modern stability. But the reality was far more human and infinitely more fragile. The burden he carried wasn't simply about heritage or expectation. It was about survival in an age where the monarchy itself was being questioned. Behind the composed public appearances and well-rehearsed smiles was a man torn between two worlds, the traditions of the past and the brutal reality of the present. His confession wasn't a moment of weakness. It was a cry for help in a palace built on silence. Those who heard the recording described a man haunted by the ghosts of duty. Advisors who'd once sworn loyalty to the institution were suddenly divided. Some wanted to protect him, others to protect the crown. The tension was palpable. One aide reportedly whispered, "We've never seen him like this before." Kate, upon hearing the confession, broke down in tears. For her, it wasn't just the sound of a husband cracking, it was the shattering of the very foundation that had kept their family together. The monarchy was supposed to be unbreakable, but what happens when the man destined to lead it admits he might not be strong enough? Inside the palace, the atmosphere grew suffocating. Senior courtiers moved swiftly to impose a media blackout, ordering silence among staff and locking down communications. But in an age of digital whispers, control was an illusion. The leak reached select journalists' trusted voices who understood the gravity of what they'd been handed. The story wasn't about scandal, it was about truth. A truth the palace could no longer hide behind golden gates and polished press statements. Behind closed doors, the Queen's legacy loomed heavy. The family had always endured wars, divorces, deaths, and betrayals, but never before had its future king spoken words that could unravel its image of endurance. Those closest to William described him as conflicted, restless, almost hollowed out by the enormity of expectation. It was as if the weight of every crown before him was pressing against his chest, demanding he uphold a dynasty that no longer felt alive. Yet, amid the chaos, there was something strangely human about the confession. It stripped away the royal armor and revealed the trembling heart beneath. The monarchy had always been about performance, tradition, endurance. But William's words cut through that illusion. For the first time, the world saw not a prince of privilege, but a man suffocating under the ghosts of his bloodline. But the weight William carries isn't just about duty, it's about the people closest to him, and the betrayals that have been quietly unraveling the House of Windsor from within. For years, the world hoped the rift between William and Harry would heal. But insiders now reveal that behind palace walls, the divide has grown so deep, it threatens to break the crown itself. William's confession came just days after a shocking, unsent letter from Harry was uncovered, one that could destroy their last chance at reconciliation. In the shadowed corners of Windsor, William has privately admitted what the world suspected but never confirmed. The guilt of losing his brother is eating him alive. "I failed him," he reportedly said in a private briefing, a sentiment filled with both anguish and resignation. That single sentence exposed a raw truth the monarchy had worked tirelessly to bury. Their bond, once unbreakable, had fractured beyond recognition, and now its splinters were piercing through the very fabric of the royal image. But what deepened the wound was not just silence or distance, it was the emergence of a letter never meant to be seen. A letter Harry had written to their father, Charles, but had never sent. A letter that, line by line, eviscerated William's leadership, questioning not only his suitability as the future king, but his humanity. The language in Harry's letter was laced with pain, betrayal, and rage. He accused William of choosing the institution over their brotherhood, of wearing the crown before understanding its weight. And the most haunting accusation? That William had become exactly what their mother, Diana, feared: a man trapped in duty, blind to compassion. The letter, kept hidden by a former aide and now surfacing amid William's confessional spiral, reignited wounds that had never fully healed. And as if the emotional storm wasn't already devastating, there came another brutal twist. Meghan's name, once a flashpoint of controversy, had been completely erased from all royal planning documents. No mentions, no footnotes, no consideration. Whether this was an act of protection or punishment remains unclear, but within palace circles, it sent a chilling message. Meghan was no longer part of any future, not even as a memory. As William wrestled with personal torment, Charles remained silent. His indifference has been more corrosive than conflict. He neither intervened nor consoled, choosing instead to remain above the fray, a monarch more than a father. This left William caught in a brutal loyalty war between a brother who feels abandoned and a father who treats emotion as weakness. Sources close to the palace say a secret peace summit had been attempted, held at a remote estate, away from cameras and court. It was a last-ditch effort to bring the brothers back to the same table, but it collapsed before it began. Harry arrived. William didn't. The silence that followed was deafening. The staff, those once loyal to both men, now tread a minefield. Every action, every whisper, every neutral expression is scrutinized. Being seen as favoring one brother risks exile from the other. Some have resigned entirely. Others have turned to private confessions of their own, most echoing the same fear. The monarchy cannot survive a fractured core. What began as a sibling rift has now metastasized into an existential crisis, dragging William's deepest insecurities into the light. His confession, so full of doubt, wasn't merely about himself. It was the sound of a man watching his legacy split in two and not knowing how to bridge the gap without burning everything down in the process. But family feuds are only the beginning. Behind palace gates, even more explosive confrontations were erupting, ones that forced William to question everything before her passing. Queen Elizabeth II left behind a sealed document known only to a few, the Legacy Directive. It wasn't opened until months later, and when it was, Prince William reportedly went pale. What secret did the late Queen carry to her grave that now haunts her grandson's every decision? The atmosphere in the palace shifted the moment the envelope was unsealed. It wasn't a will. It wasn't a ceremonial parting message. It was something far more disquieting. The Legacy Directive, as it would soon be called in hushed tones, contained not just institutional guidance, but intimate, piercing reflections on the monarchy's future. Not a single word has been released to the public, but those who have seen its contents speak of a tone more urgent than regal, more prophetic than political. Queen Elizabeth had spent her final years worrying not about her own legacy, but about the fragility of what she would leave behind. She feared the House of Windsor might not survive the storms ahead. The scandals, the division, the growing public disillusionment, it was all closing in, and she knew it. What shook William the most was the clause buried deep in the directive, a controversial mandate now known as the Modernization Clause. It outlined a series of drastic reforms meant to align the monarchy with a rapidly changing world. Some viewed it as a necessary evolution. Others, including several senior royals, saw it as a betrayal of centuries of tradition. At the heart of it was a painful instruction, written not as a command, but as a plea from grandmother to grandson: choose duty over blood. Those 4 words would torment William. Was the Queen asking him to sideline his own brother? To reshape the monarchy without Charles's influence? Or worse, was she warning him that loyalty to family could be the monarchy's undoing? The weight of the decision was unbearable. William knew what the clause required, downsizing the monarchy, severing ties with outdated Commonwealth protocols, even reconsidering the line of succession to account for public sentiment. But every step forward in reform was a step away from the institution he had sworn to protect. Charles, upon reading his own letter from the Queen, was said to have grown cold and unresponsive. Their already strained dynamic collapsed into silent contempt. William was now operating without paternal support, guided only by the ghost of his grandmother's final request and the rising tension in his own home. Kate, ever the loyal partner, pushed back. She had always believed in evolving tradition, but not at the cost of principle. According to palace sources, their private arguments turned increasingly emotional. Kate urged him to defy the directive, to forge their own path, not one dictated by fear and secrecy. But William was paralyzed. To obey meant turning the monarchy into something unrecognizable. To resist meant dishonoring the last words of the only monarch who had ever truly understood him. Either way, something sacred would be lost. But behind palace doors, he was a man unraveling, haunted by his grandmother's prophetic fears and the burden of decisions that could either save or destroy the very institution he was born to lead. He stopped sleeping. His most trusted aides were dismissed in a sweeping reshuffle. He withdrew from his brother. He grew distant from his father. And with each passing day, the ghost of the legacy directive loomed larger, its silence more deafening, its meaning more divisive. But the pressure to modernize collides with another, a darker force, one that's been quietly steering the monarchy's fate from behind the throne. Queen Camilla has never been quiet about her influence, but sources say she's been waging a silent war to reshape the monarchy in her image. And Prince William? He may be her greatest obstacle, or her most necessary pawn. Is Camilla pulling strings that even Charles can't cut? In the aftermath of Queen Elizabeth's passing, as the royal family clung to tradition in a bid to project stability, another power quietly emerged, steadier, shrewder, and unrelenting. Camilla, once the outsider, once the woman whispered about in scandal, had finally reached the throne beside Charles. But her ambitions didn't stop at Queen Consort. According to insiders, she began restructuring the palace from the inside out, piece by strategic piece, assembling a court loyal not to the legacy of Elizabeth, but to the authority of Camilla. Within weeks, key staffers known for their allegiance to William and Kate were reassigned, demoted, or removed altogether. In their place arrived loyalists, many of them former aides to Camilla during her Duchess years, tasked with aligning the monarchy's future to her vision, not William's inheritance. What followed was far more calculated than coincidence. Whispers of clandestine meetings between Camilla and high-ranking courtiers began surfacing. These weren't ceremonial gatherings, they were tactical briefings, carefully orchestrated to reduce William and Kate's growing sway over the public. There was even talk of altering funding allocations for their initiatives and limiting their visibility at select international events. When William's advisors intercepted a confidential palace memo linking Camilla to an internal document, one that mysteriously landed in a tabloid's inbox just hours before a major royal announcement, the prince's team knew this wasn't a misunderstanding. It was a message. A silent chess move in a power struggle nobody dared to acknowledge aloud. Meanwhile, King Charles's presence in these mounting tensions was notable only for its absence. Increasingly withdrawn, Charles was said to prioritize global diplomacy and climate summits over internal family matters. His disengagement wasn't just indifference, it was a quiet endorsement of Camilla's maneuvers. He believed she brought stability, a term he repeated often, especially when questioned about the growing discord between his wife and his son. But stability, for whom? And at what cost? To William, the message was chillingly clear. Charles would not intervene. He had already chosen his side. The final blow came behind closed doors, in a private conversation that never made headlines, until now. Camilla, face to face with William, issued a cutting challenge cloaked in royal civility. "You don't have the stomach for the throne," she told him, not as an insult, but as a warning. It was a line that stripped away the last illusions of unity within the royal family. No longer was this a generational difference. It had become a battle for the soul of the crown itself. and the stakes were growing higher by the hour. Within William's circle, suspicion metastasized. Was Camilla isolating him by design? Was she orchestrating his slow erasure from the royal power map? Every cancelled briefing, every omitted appearance, every undermined initiative, none of it felt accidental anymore. Camilla was consolidating influence, and William was being boxed in. Not publicly, not loudly, but effectively. Even Kate's once unshakable place in the hierarchy was beginning to fray, and in that brewing storm, it was only a matter of time before the next fracture exploded into full public view. And while Camilla maneuvers in the shadows, another crisis ignites publicly, one involving Kate, and a royal event that turned into a global embarrassment. She was the monarchy's shining jewel until the night she walked out. At a state banquet, cameras captured Duchess Kate's strained expression, but what happened afterward, in the royal car, was far more telling and heartbreaking. William's confession wasn't just about the crown. It was about losing the woman who held it all together. That night was supposed to be a triumph, a glittering diplomatic affair, designed to remind the world that Britain's monarchy still carried grace, dignity, and poise. But behind the diamond smiles and ceremonial handshakes, something was shattering. Kate, ever composed in the public eye, cracked. The footage spread fast, her abrupt departure, a momentary flash of distress, a whispered exchange with a staffer. But what the cameras didn't capture was far more explosive. Inside the royal car, with the doors closed and the world briefly locked out, she turned to William and said the words that would haunt him for weeks. "I didn't marry a ghost." 6 words that cut deeper than any tabloid headline or courtier betrayal. It was the voice of a woman pushed past breaking, begging to be seen not by the public, but by the man she once believed would walk beside her, not ahead of her. The weight of expectation had become unbearable. Kate, a devoted mother, an elegant representative, and the backbone of William's public life, had also been left to carry a burden that was never meant to be hers alone. The scrutiny had intensified. The internal tension between William and the rest of the firm had bled into their marriage, infecting moments that should have been private. Every school drop-off, every holiday, every family memory, they were all now subject to royal optics. William's increasing disappearances, his relentless schedule, and his emotional withdrawal made her feel abandoned in a palace full of people. She was celebrated as the perfect duchess, but privately, she was drowning in silence. Insiders close to the royal household whispered of missed anniversaries, unreturned messages, and long, quiet dinners filled with nothing but duty. Kate had once been William's anchor. Now she was adrift, exhausted by the very institution she worked tirelessly to uphold. A senior aide, who had served under both the Queen and Kate, was overheard saying, "It's like she's carrying the monarchy alone." And in many ways, she was. With Charles detached and Camilla consolidating power, and Harry long gone, Kate was the only royal left with genuine public admiration. But admiration wasn't enough to hold together a crumbling marriage. Behind the scenes, palace officials began making contingency plans. Quiet conversations about counselling, mediated retreats, and even temporary separation floated through the corridors of Kensington. Therapy was encouraged, though never confirmed. Rumours of trial separations were quickly buried. The monarchy could not afford another fractured royal couple. But the deeper truth was this: Kate wasn't threatening to leave the crown. She was threatening to leave the man who was supposed to protect her from it. And William? He was unravelling. The very foundation he had depended on for strength was now teetering on the edge. His confession, the one that began this spiral, was no longer just about his own limitations. It was about the guilt of watching the woman he loved be consumed by the same institution he was desperately trying to save. And he didn't know how to stop it. As the marriage faced its own reckoning, William turned to an unexpected source for guidance, one who knows the cost of royal duty all too well. When William turned to his father for help, he expected support. What he got instead was a lesson in cold, ruthless monarchy. King Charles, hardened by decades of scandal and survival, offered only one piece of advice: one that sent William spiraling into guilt, rage, and silence. Their meeting was meant to be private, a father and son attempting to find clarity amid the chaos. But what unfolded behind the tightly sealed doors of Balmoral was anything but healing. William had come with vulnerability, with the hope that his father would offer wisdom, empathy, maybe even relief. But Charles, always the strategist, always the survivor, responded with frost. "Everyone cracks, you get back up." The words landed like a slap, not because they were false, but because they confirmed what William feared most: his father didn't see the human cost of the crown, only its preservation. Charles wasn't offering advice. He was issuing a command. Bury your doubt, kill your weakness, and wear the crown, even if it destroys you. For William, the sting was immediate. His father, who had spent much of his own life in Diana's shadow, was now dismissing the very emotional struggle that once crippled him. And worse, he was invoking his own survival as the blueprint. William, still wrestling with the fallout from Kate's breakdown, the widening chasm with Harry, and Camilla's quiet campaign of control, was being told to rise not as a man, but as a symbol, the same symbol Charles had become, and that comparison was unbearable. The irony clawed at him. His mother had warned him of this very path. In one of her final letters, Diana wrote that William must never let duty harden him like it had his father, that he should be guided by compassion, not calculation. Yet here he was, standing before the man who had weaponized endurance and sacrificed intimacy, being told to follow suit. The tension didn't end there. A deeper unease had begun to take hold. Rumors that Charles was reconsidering any timeline to step aside. While many had assumed William would gradually be handed more responsibility in preparation for a sooner-than-expected succession, new whispers suggested Charles intended to remain on the throne far longer than anyone anticipated. For William, it was more than a delay. It was a denial of purpose, a deliberate attempt to keep him confined to the waiting room of destiny while the crown passed deeper into Camilla's grip. Charles wasn't just holding on. He was redefining what power looked like with William on the outside, knocking. In the weeks that followed, William's mind returned again and again to Diana. Her voice, her fears, her warnings. And then came a chilling discovery. A private diary, preserved in a secure archive, held a note never before seen by William. Written in her hand, it read, "He must never become his father." The message hit like prophecy. It wasn't just caution, it was a plea, a desperate hope that William would reject the cold detachment that had made Charles both powerful and pitiful. But as William looked at himself in the mirror, he could no longer tell where the line was. Stripped of support, pressed from all sides, and haunted by the echoes of his mother's voice, William began to unravel. But it wasn't weakness. It was awakening. He realized that staying silent, staying passive, was slowly erasing him. And so, for the first time, he stopped asking for permission. Pushed to the edge, William made a decision that stunned the monarchy. A desperate attempt to reclaim his voice, and possibly destroy the crown in the process. Just days after his breakdown, a confidential memo from William's personal archive surfaced in the press. It exposed private conversations, royal fears, and a chilling line that set fire to the institution. "The monarchy will fall within my lifetime unless we change everything." Who leaked it, and why? The document wasn't supposed to exist beyond a locked drawer in Kensington Palace. It had been drafted during William's most vulnerable moment, a midnight scrawl transformed into a formal internal memorandum, meant for no more than 3 pairs of trusted eyes. But once it reached the press, it exploded like dynamite across the front pages of the world. The memo laid bare not just William's disillusionment, but his intent. Within its tightly composed paragraphs were proposals that struck at the core of everything the monarchy had clung to. Plans to dismantle inherited titles, streamline the line of succession, and reconsider the United Kingdom's deep and often unspoken dependence on the Commonwealth's symbolic allegiance. It wasn't rebellion, it was revolution disguised as reform. The leak sent shockwaves through global media. "Is William walking away from the throne?" screamed headlines across Europe. "The future king in crisis," read the New York Times. The British press, predictably, split into factions, some defending William's courage, others calling for his immediate removal from royal duties. Within hours, social media ignited with speculation. Was this a calculated move, a desperate act, or the beginning of the end for a monarchy already buckling under internal division? Even foreign governments quietly reached out for clarification. Was the crown now unstable? Inside the palace, chaos erupted. Crisis teams convened in emergency meetings. Senior advisors were ordered to trace the leak, but trust had already shattered. Fingers pointed in every direction. Camilla, already accused of palace manipulation, was privately suspected of orchestrating the breach to further discredit William. Others, more quietly, whispered. Harry's name was this long-awaited revenge cloaked in plausible deniability. But what stung most deeply was the possibility that someone within William's own inner circle had betrayed him. A trusted aide? A long-time confidant? The betrayal wasn't just political, it was intimate. William, once again, went silent. No statements, no public appearances. His retreat from the spotlight was interpreted by many as the prelude to abdication. The monarchy had been wounded before scandal, divorce, exile, but never had a future king expressed so clearly his doubt in the system he was meant to inherit. In the absence of clarity, imagination took over, and in that silence, the crown's fragility was no longer speculation. It was visible, undeniable, and terrifying. Kate, however, was not silent. According to sources close to the palace, she confronted William in a moment of fury and heartbreak. "This wasn't how we were supposed to fight back," she said, her voice reportedly filled with disbelief. She had supported reform, yes, but not exposure, not a leak, not this kind of battlefield. To her, the monarchy wasn't just about power, it was about survival. And William, intentionally or not, had opened the gates to its greatest vulnerability. But just as the monarchy teetered on the edge, a secret conversation emerged recorded years ago, never meant to see daylight, that would redefine everything. In a vault beneath Kensington Palace, an unreleased audio tape, Diana's last recording, was discovered by royal archivists. On it, she speaks directly to William about the future, about betrayal, and about the day he would have to choose between being a king or a man. This moment has arrived. The discovery was accidental, or so the story goes. A mislabeled box of personal effects from the late Princess of Wales was being reviewed for digitization when the archivist stumbled upon a small, unmarked cassette. At first, it was thought to be a duplicate of Diana's known interviews. But what they heard instead was something no one had expected, a private message recorded weeks before her death, addressed not to the public, but to her eldest son. The voice was unmistakable, soft, composed, but edged with urgency. "If you're listening to this," Diana began, "it means the crown has wounded you too." And with that chilling line, the recording unraveled a prophecy that felt less like memory and more like fate. Diana spoke of fractures that hadn't yet surfaced, of a woman who would rise from scandal to reign, of a brother exiled, and of a son caught between love and legacy. She described the palace as a place where empathy was devoured by protocol, where the soul of a person was often sacrificed at the altar of symbolism. And then she said it plain, direct, and devastating. "One day, William, they will ask you to choose. Between being a king or being a man. Do not let them take both." Her words weren't advice. They were a lifeline tossed across time, from a mother who had seen the darkness and feared it would claim her son too. The effect on William was immediate. Those who were present when the tape was played described him as visibly shaken, as though every doubt, every unspoken fear, had suddenly been given voice. That evening, without speaking to anyone, he left the palace alone. No convoy. No security fanfare. Just a man walking into the London night, cloaked not in regalia, but in grief. The walls he had built to survive the last few months began to collapse. His silence, once strategic, now became suffocating. For William, the weight of the tape was not just emotional, it was existential. He wasn't hearing his mother. He was hearing the echo of his own thoughts, spoken decades before he had dared to admit them aloud. And then came Kate. When she listened to the tape, tears came instantly, not from shock, but from recognition. "Now, I understand everything," she whispered to those closest to her. Diana had seen what Kate had only begun to glimpse: the unbearable price of proximity to the throne. This wasn't just about duty anymore. It was about preservation of identity, of family, of soul. Diana's voice was no longer a memory. It had become a call to action, and it placed a choice directly in William's hands. He could follow the path laid before him, slowly disintegrating under the pressure of legacy. Or he could do the unthinkable step off the path entirely. Everything was converging: the betrayals, the silence, the exhaustion, and now his mother's final plea. The monarchy had taken so much from them both. Was it noble to keep serving it, or cowardly to let it define him? The tape offered no answers, only the truth. And so, with the world watching and the palace in chaos, Prince William made the unthinkable move, one that would end one chapter of the monarchy and begin another. In a historic televised statement, Prince William stepped forward not as a king in waiting, but as a man unwilling to lose himself to the crown. His words redefined the monarchy. His decision redefined history, and his final vow stunned even the most cynical royal watchers: "I will not let duty destroy us." The broadcast was brief, yet its tremor was felt across continents. William, once seen as the inevitable heir, announced he would step back from the royal succession temporarily, but indefinitely. It was not abdication. It was not rebellion. It was a pause, a choice, one that shattered centuries of silent submission. He spoke without royal flourish, without the ceremonial cadence that usually cloaked royal speeches. Instead, there was a quiet fire in his voice, a tired, controlled defiance. He acknowledged his failures, his internal battles, the impossible expectations that nearly consumed him. And then, with a calm that masked the storm behind his eyes, he said the words that changed everything. "I need to find the man before I can serve as the crown." The palace was blindsided. King Charles reportedly received no prior warning. Camilla, sources say, was furious, redrawing press plans, demanding damage control, and calling emergency meetings with senior staff. The line of succession, now suspended by uncertainty, had become a battlefield. Loyalists to the old guard panicked, whispering of instability. But it was too late. The message had already reached the people, and outside the palace gates, a different reaction was brewing. The public, especially the younger generations, flooded social media with support. For many, this was the first time the monarchy had felt real, human, vulnerable. They didn't see a runaway prince, they saw a man reclaiming his voice in a family known for burying theirs. But the move had personal consequences too. Kate, ever by his side, took immediate steps to remove herself and the children from the royal spotlight, relocating them to an undisclosed location. "Family first," she reportedly told close friends. "No more appearances, no more staged photo ops." For the first time since joining the royal fold, Kate Middleton became invisible by choice. Their decision wasn't just a public shift, it was a survival tactic. Protect the children, protect the marriage, protect whatever was left after the institution had taken so much. He stated clearly, he would return, but only with the power to implement sweeping reforms. If that was denied, then his departure would become permanent. He refused to watch the monarchy devour itself from within. No more silence, no more shadows. What would those reforms look like? He didn't say, but the silence left behind carried weight. Unspoken plans, unfinished business. A prince with unfinished bloodlines to mend and legacies to rebuild. And so, the monarchy moved into a new, uncertain era, no longer defined by ceremonial tradition, but held together by something far more fragile: silence, suspense, and the absence of its most trusted future. There was no abdication, no coronation, no dramatic fall, but a vacuum. A crown left gleaming on the table, untouched. Waiting. As the crown trembles and secrets linger, one truth remains. The future of the monarchy now rests on the shoulders of a prince who dared to say what no royal ever had enough. Thanks for watching. Please don't forget to like and subscribe, and we will see you in next one.